I'm not surprised it has a name like that.
Me neither.
Yeah. So they hung out and did camping kind of things, and then about 10:30 p.m. they went to bed. You got to remember that Finland is way far north, so sunset on June 4th would have been around 10:40.
So they went to bed about sunset.
Yeah. Because, well, sunrise is real early, too.
Well, and the thing, I don't know if a lot of people have spent time in kind of the northern regions. I suppose many of our listeners have. If you haven't, there's also a huge discrepancy between, like, sunset and then there's, like, a couple hours of dusk, right, before it gets, like, really, really dark. And then it's dark for just a couple of hours before it starts to be dawn.
On a good night.
On a good night, yeah, and then the sun rises. So that's another thing to keep in mind while we tell this story, is that it would have been light out for the bulk of the night as well. I think it actually said on that same page that you got the sunset at 10:30. I think it said that full dark was at midnight or something like that. It was dark for like 3 hours.
Yeah, and then the sunrise is at 2:30 in the morning.
Yeah. That sounds right? You read that too?
Yeah, I remember that the sun rose, so it makes sense.
It's really early.
In this case, I'd say, there's 4 hours between sunset and sunrise?
Something like that.
I'd say full dark is almost nil
very
at
little.
that point.
Yeah, so I guess you get used to it. I suppose you get used to sleeping when it's light out.
So, well, I'm sure they were used to that, but that's probably why they went to bed at about sunset, knowing they would try to sleep when it was darkest.
At least, yeah, exactly. Okay, back to our story. The tent just was a large canvas pup tent. And as I'm sure you all know, a pup tent is supported by a pole at either end. And then the pole is held in place by a rope that goes down to a stake in the ground, right?
On two ends.
Yeah, on either end, yeah.
It's the quintessential tent.
Yeah,
right?
it's kind of one of the original.
Old school canvas.
Yeah. I think of it as like a Wes Anderson tent, but that's just because that's my frame of reference for mid-century. So.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, I actually had a pup tent when I was a kid. I used it a lot. Camped a lot more back then.
Well, there was less murders.
Yeah, well, I think there were
that you knew of.
Yeah. Okay.
A lot of people just moved.
Yeah.
Unannounced.
Immediately with leaving all of their stuff behind.
Yeah.
That sounds about right.
Said, I'm going to go camping, and then moved.
Yeah. So, they must have moved. Let's auction off their stuff. So back to our spot of unpleasantness.
Murder Peninsula.
Yeah, Peninsula.
Let's refer to it by its real name.
Yeah, that unpleasantness took place in daylight because the attack happened between 4 and 6 a.m. And at that time, a person or possibly persons cut the lines at both ends of the tent. The tent collapsed on our sleeping protagonists. And then again, a person or two persons attacked them with a blunt object and a knife. They pounded on their heads and stabbed them through the canvas. It's unclear what the blunt object was. It could have been a rock or it could have been a pipe. Nils Gustafsson appears to have been the only one of the four to actually crawl out of the tent, but he was brought down by blows to the head and slashed to the forehead. And he wound up laying unconscious on top of the tent when the tent had the other bodies inside of it.
I thought one of the other girls was also, like, at least partially out of the tent.
Yeah, one of his Irmali, I've heard it in one place. I heard that she was either partially or completely out of the tent, and also her pants or skirt, whatever she was wearing, was gone. Yeah.
So I remember reading, and I think this helps kind of describe some of this, is pup tents are, you lay in them and you're kind of like a log. You're laying in a row. And if I remember correctly, it was the boys were on the outsides of the tent. So one on either side. And then the girls were side by side in the center.
I thought it was the reverse. I thought it was the guys on the inside and the girls on the outside. Yeah.
Because the way I had heard it was that it was the guys who were on the outside, or read it, I should say. And I couldn't tell which direction they were sleeping because that pup tent, when you look at it, is pretty damn small.
Yeah.
So I was trying to figure out like how they were stacked in there. Were they on their sides? Were they all kind of at a 90-degree angle with their legs bent from the spine?
They probably were all just stacked in a row.
Just in a row?
4 sardines in a can, right?
Yeah. kind of what I'm thinking.
And the tent, when I saw it, and maybe this was just for some other reason it had tears in it, but it seemed like both ends by the peaks, both ends had tears of stabs and rips in them. Is that what you
That's
saw?
what I saw.
Yeah,
too.
plus a really big hole torn in it.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
and a bunch of blood, obviously.
But it looked like all on one side. All the tears were happening on the one side.
Mm-hmm.
But the other side was still intact.
Yeah, I haven't seen a picture of both sides of the tent.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've only seen it from one side.
Yeah, but it looked like it was canvas through.
Oh, like
through the hole.
stabbed through the tent, you mean?
I just mean that, like, when you looked at that picture, it looked like there was canvas on the other side of.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah,
the back side
Yeah.
side of the tent that we couldn't see, or the opposite side of it.
Yeah, probably the poles when the ropes were cut kind of went in, and then the one chose a side, then just both went down one side or the other. So one side of the
they could have all tipped, away from us, say.
Yeah, and on over their bodies, and then just started pounding away with this blunt object and sticking.
Which would explain why only one of the two sides of the pitch of the tent had the holes in it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But what I don't get is if they are being assaulted that much, and like I said, it seemed like that side of the pitch, the left and right side of it, had holes in it, so it wasn't like they were going for what they expected to be the heads. And I got the impression that whoever was doing the attacking didn't know where their heads were in the tent, so kind of went after both sides.
Could have been. He could have jumped on top of him and felt around until he found the head and then bash. That might have been the way he did it. Yeah.
Or it could have gotten cut in the struggle with Nels trying to get out of the tent.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing
he was kicking, and
that's what led me to this whole thing. Is if he gets out, how did he get out of the tent? Because obviously he couldn't have gone through the flap. He would have had gone through all the holes that was cut.
Well, one of those holes is definitely big enough.
Way big enough for him to get out.
Right, but that's why I'm wondering if the girl, what is her name again?
Ermali? Yeah.
I'm almost wondering if she didn't necessarily actually climb out as much as kind of half get drug out as he was scrambling out.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's or maybe the killer drug her out afterwards, too.
True.
Yeah, we don't know. Nils actually doesn't remember anything of the attack.
Weird.
Yeah.
He got hit real hard on the head or something.
Yeah, I know. he had a concussion. Yeah,
he got hit both, just because this is important later, right?
Yeah, front and back.
He got front and back.
Yeah.
Pretty hard.
Yeah, it shattered his jaw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that we've said that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he got whaled.
I will bring that up later.
Yeah, he was seriously injured, but he did survive the attack. He had to go to the hospital, of course. They had to list his injuries. He had a blow to the back of the head, which gave him a wound and a lump back there, which probably is what gave him his concussion. And then his jaw was shattered. And in the hospital, it looked like his eye was puffed up, too.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's just a side effect of getting your jaw shattered or if he got hit in the eye also.
Okay, that's what and I'm going to ask these questions a couple of times because the research is a little spotty in places.
It's at least in English, the stuff
so
that's out there is spotty. So it makes it
tough to find the answer. So do we know from where his jaw was shattered? Was it from the side of the mandible? Was it from the point of the chin? I got the impression it was on the side of the mandible.
I got the impression it was on the side also.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that would explain why if you get hit hard enough to break your jaw, why your eye is going to swell up.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Especially if you were laying on your side, because that's where the blood would pool more. If you had any kind of internal bleeding.
Well, was the swollen eye? Are you saying he was laying on the break after the fact?
Yeah.
Okay.
He might have been. I don't know.
I'm just saying.
Yeah,
that would also help.
I don't know. I was just thinking a blow hard enough to shatter.
Again, I may just be making this up.
I'm doing the same thing.
Yeah, we just don't know.
Nope.
Yeah. The time of the attack was determined by the temperature and stiffness of the bodies, which is usually the way they do that.
Rigor mortis, weird.
Yeah,
lividity.
And as to what the blown object was, it's hard to say what it was without reading a medical examiner's report. Getting hit with a pipe is going to leave a different wound than getting hit with a rock. Mm-hmm. Although the nice thing about using a big rock instead of a pipe is it's really easy to get rid of your murder weapon.
Yep. Especially if you're right next to a lake.
A lake? Yeah, you just toss it in the lake. And so that's the argument in favor of using a rock. Plus, I don't know if this was a well-planned attack or if it was just a spur-of-the-moment thing. Mm-hmm. Lots of us are likely to have a knife on us at any given time. Most of us aren't going to have a knife and a lead pipe.
Yeah.
Probably not, yeah.
I mean, I do, but that's me.
Yeah.
That's because you don't like to watch your car by yourself.
Yeah, because you guys keep scaring me with stories
All right.
like this.
Well, these creepy stories.
Ah.
Nils was, even though he couldn't remember it, but he was hypnotized afterward. Yeah, and he identified the object then as a pipe or a cylinder, but I'm not sure how seriously we should take that.
Are we going to talk about what he said when he was hypnotized?
Yeah.
Okay, we will. Okay,
yeah,
great.
because
We'll talk about that then.
Yeah, definitely. We will definitely talk about that. Even though, again, I'm not sure how seriously we should take this hypnosis stuff. We've talked about that before. Sometime not long after the murders, two young boys who apparently were out bird watching happened by the campsite. They noticed a tent and Nils lying on it, but apparently they just assumed that he was taking a snooze in the sun because they just sort of wandered on. But before
well, they were first attracted by the motorcycles.
Well, apparently that was part of what they said, is they were interested in the motorcycles also, and so they saw him laying there, and they also saw a blonde man walking away from the campsite toward the lake. And then they moseyed on.
Were they the ones that helped to provide the sketches?
Oh, the blonde man?
Yeah.
No, they didn't see the blonde man's face. His back was to them.
Great.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah. I'm not sure if I think it was actually Nils who did the sketches, and the sketches came out really kind of funky looking.
Yeah.
It didn't look like a human being, really.
Hopefully, we'll post pictures because they're creepy.
Yeah. Yeah, and I can't imagine any human being who looks like that. So that's a strange thing about that.
Nope, not even the Hulk.
Kind of Hulk-faced.
Did you look at the picture?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's totally Hulk-faced.
Yeah.
With like a giant forehead, maybe.
Yeah, and a huge jaw.
1970s Hulk.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Oh,
Sorry.
Oh, no, it's okay. Our blonde guy, the blonde man, was also seen by a guy who was fishing nearby. Some said on the farther shore, but that could mean, like, since you were on a peninsula, that could mean just, like, right over here. Far shore of the lake. Well, this is a big lake. It's like half a mile across.
Uh-huh.
So,
Yeah, it had to be close.
Yeah, it had to be kind of close. But we don't know for sure if it was the same guy because 80% of the population of Finland is blonde. So,
There's kind of a commonality there. It's hard to pin down.
Yeah. It didn't. As it happened, Nils laid there unconscious until 11 a.m. when somebody was jogging by. His name was Risto
Wasn't it a swim team?
I heard that.
I thought it was some swimmers or something. There was something to do with swimming.
I've heard a lot of contradictory things. The guy that I had heard, it was a single guy who was a carpenter by trade who was out for a jog. Oh, that's what I heard.
I don't know where I thought I read somewhere it was swimmers or a swim team or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but
I don't know.
Somebody.
We'll assume it was a swim team of carpenters.
Yeah. Smart.
Yeah. So he came by. He noticed the scene, and he went over and checked, and noticed that Nils was injured, and there appeared to be bodies in the tent. And he might have noticed also his girlfriend lying next to him on top of the tent.
It is a tent covered in blood.
Yeah, and there's blood. So he calls the police. Then word gets out around town. Espoo is not a really huge town. Word got around fast. Everybody from Espoo came out and started walking around through the woods looking for clues or evidence or murder weapons. And surprisingly, the local police were okay with that. But I guess it might be that they just didn't have a lot of resources on the police force, to actually comb through the woods themselves, so they got the locals to do it.
Doesn't seem like this is something they deal with on a regular basis.
And it also, and to that point, right, that they would think, well, clearly nobody from our community could have done this, so they wouldn't be trying to cover it up, so they can help. That's fine, right?
That innocent thought process.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is a good point. First thing you want to do is get on that combing team.
If you were the murderer?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that is not uncommon.
Yeah. No. But it's not. You can get out there and go combing through the woods looking for the murder weapon.
And just happen upon it.
And then just happen to not report it.
Yeah.
Yeah. The police started going through the personal effects of the victims, and they found that some of their stuff was missing, like the wallets and the swimsuits. Also, Nils and Seppo's shoes were gone. The swimsuits maybe can be explained because I hear Lake Bottom is very cold, so maybe they weren't planning on swimming at all.
Where did I read something about Nils was talking? There's some interview or there's some transcript of him talking about the fact that, I swear it was him, he had gone down to the water, he was going to go swim.
The hypnotism interview.
Is it?
That was it.
And the other guy was fishing, and then he decided not to swim because it was so cold.
Yeah.
Which would mean that his swim gear had disappeared.
Well, alternately, though, if he had gotten it wet, or if they had gone swimming at all, when I go swimming at a lake, I lay my swim clothes out like on the lake shore where it's sunniest and warmest.
Or hang them from a branch or something like
yeah,
that. So
something like that to dry. So if they had gone in and been like, well, just kidding, it's way too cold, you take that thing off and lay it out to dry somewhere. So that would also count for.
True, but I mean, most people do it close to camp.
Yeah, that's true.
And I'm sure they searched the shore. I mean, so you would think they would have found them if they were laying around there. But they just maybe didn't bring any at all.
And you talked about the shoes were missing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know those come up later on, and I just want to make sure people understand that the shoes were missing.
Yeah.
Which is weird.
They were definitely missing. Yeah. So that's still kind of inexplicable.
Yeah, that's really weird, actually.
Mm-hmm. The wallets being gone might point to this being a robbery with a little murder thrown in. It's hard to say.
But also, they were 18 and 15 respectively, so
wouldn't be much there.
Yeah,
doubtfully.
It can't be that good of a motive.
Yeah, and actually, I have to admit, I've only heard about the missing wallets from one source. Again, this story is a little different everywhere you read it.
And it's hard to. I think Finnish is hard. I know Google Translate has a really hard time with Finnish. We were talking about there's a really great a very, as far as I can tell, exhaustive Wikipedia article in Finnish about this. And you tell, okay, Chrome, translate this, and you get sentences where it's like, the man's chin was afternoon and rock-like appearance, and it's like, I don't know what that means. I'm sorry, I don't know what you're trying to tell me right now. So there's that difficulty as well.
Oh yeah. There's I translated another wiki Finnish page into English, and I had a similar result. I was able to actually get some. It wasn't completely unintelligible. Yeah. But this one was about a double murder that happened the year before, not too far from Lake Bottom.
Well, certainly not every sentence is that way, but there are some sentences where you're just like that.
But I think that's part of the reason that every version in English that you read is a little different.
Absolutely.
Because people are translating it themselves, either because they know some of the language or they're using a translation tool
and throwing out the sentences that are gibberish.
Yeah.
That must not be important. It's fine.
Yeah, there's got to be somebody out there who speaks both English and Finnish.
I think there's a couple of them.
Yeah,
well,
sure.
and I don't know Finnish well enough to know if it's a partially tonal language. If there's some sort of this word means something different with a certain inflection, and if it's all written, like all the transcripts are written, then you're kind of just SOL.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, or if it was written wrong, or the spelling was different, or there was a dialect, or
or
there's
somebody
so
just
many
had bad handwriting.
Also possible, yeah. So those are all points.
Niels and Seppo's shoes were finally found. 600. They were found.
Okay.
Yeah. They were found 630 meters south-southwest of the campsite as a crow flies, and almost 800 meters if you walk along a path.
How long would it take me to walk that far?
That's a kilometer and a half. So,
which equates to what?
About a mile.
Okay.
So 20 minutes?
I mean, actually, I guess a little more than a mile. Yeah.
Ballpark mile, round figure.
Yeah, mile and a quarter.
20 minutes away.
Yeah, not too far.
It's a long way to carry two pairs of shoes.
Yeah, I mean, if you mean just one way. You mean just one way?
It's 15.
Just one way. That's a half mile, so you could do that. Yeah, you could do that in 7 or 8 minutes probably.
But maybe not as far as you want. It's through a foresty area. Right?
Well, it's a path, so
You don't really want to walk it barefoot.
Probably not.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
well,
less
of course,
likely.
you're not necessarily walking it barefoot. If the killer picked these things up.
Right, but that's the point, right? Is that it's unlikely that the boys would have been like, well, we'll just leave our shoes here and walk barefoot back to camp.
Right? Oh yeah, no.
Highly unlikely.
Okay.
Yeah. Besides which, I mean, if they left their campsite to go anywhere, I mean, they would have just gone down to the lake, right? I mean, this was kind of way south off the peninsula that they were on.
Okay.
Many accounts of this mystery say that it was only Nils' shoes that were taken, but actually, I got this from a Finnish source, which and so.
Well, and I've actually seen stuff about the shoes, both pairs of shoes, showing up in the coverage of the case against Nils. So I think that it's just been omitted from a bunch of places.
Yeah, but
no, it's good.
But
good find.
But so both shoes were found, both sets of shoes.
And it was just by canvassing, right? No.
Yeah, and they weren't far off the path. It's
right, but it wasn't like Nils when he was under hypnosis or something said, "Oh, and I know where our shoes are." right?
No, well, yeah, it was. I think it was people walking around, and they found them, and I believe they had blood on them.
Okay.
Yeah,
They did.
So they were taken after the murders.
Okay.
That's one of the things about the whole Nils did it thing that's just so weird to me. But
There's a
there's a lot of weirdness in that case.
There's a lot of people. For a lot of people, Nils is still their number one guy.
which is so weird.
Yeah, well, we'll talk more about the case
Yeah.
against Nils.
Yeah.
I don't want to
in a
get too
little
far
bit.
ahead on that.
But speaking of that hypnosis that we were talking about a minute ago,
Yeah.
he did describe the attacker while he was under. Said the attacker was mid-sized with a round face, long blonde hair,